feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some
I
soccer.
don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college ruled.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. You got Dom, you got Chris here, and we got a good episode here coming up. I'm pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, we're talking soccer here. We're talking about probably one of the best midfielders of his era. We're talking Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard with an E-N. That's right. Queens Above 18 fans in your mom's house know what that is. But anyway, Steven Gerrard, born May 30th, 1980 in, I believe, Whitton, Merseyside, England. Yes.
Which is right. It's just a little suburb of Liverpool.
Yeah.
So he grew up in Liverpool.
Not a member of the Beatles.
With that era of, or with that growing up of both Liverpool and Everton being the main clubs, because that's the two that are there. He ends up joining the Liverpool Academy at 9.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
crazy.
Which is pretty common, but he was never like a standout youth player. I saw that where he was always kind of good, and he was always like, everybody saw his talent, but he was never one of those players that like smashed through. He never played like for the All England youth team or like any of those kind of things.
He's like making the team and he's like playing well for them, but you're not writing any articles about this is the next great English soccer player.
Exactly. He's just in the mix of players that have potential. And then he has a freak gardening accident. Which
He died in a bizarre gardening accident.
Oof, man, if you ever have a freak gardening accident with a cucumber, you need two things. Pair of tongs and a friend who can keep secrets. All right, that's a Dave Attell joke. But
I was just thinking of Spinal Tap, how the drummer died.
oh yeah, that
died
too.
in a bizarre
buzzsaw. But that's the thing is he literally had a gardening fork or whatever you want to call it go through his foot, and they talked about possibly amputating his toe, which looking back is pretty crazy, but like.
You know what medicine's like,
Yeah.
even in those days.
That's the thing. It was pretty wild. Was they were like, well, it's a possibility because this is so hard. He ends up keeping his toe. Goes on to score a bunch of goals with that toe.
Yeah, I feel like that scene in Mr. Deeds where his black foot and John Turturro shoves like the fire poker into it.
She's like, you can do whatever. She's like, no, it's fine. Ends up going to a Catholic school, even though he's not Catholic. This is actually kind of common if you're on this higher echelon of soccer, because this school has a better program. We see that with like football and stuff like that here in the States, baseball. So like it's kind of common there too, where this better
opportunity.
School,
yeah. I mean, that's why my parents sent me to Catholic school. I mean, my dad's like, don't pay attention to anything they tell you.
And that's why my dad sent me to public school. So there you go. It's like you just don't have the talent. That's what we're saying. You're 5'11". You're all right. At the age of 11, I want to say this. This is very interesting because, at the age of 14, he goes out and does a couple of trials.
That's
for
right.
Manchester United, for Everton, and stuff like that. And he does this again because he actually is trying to get Liverpool to sign him to this thing called a youth training scheme contract.
He's trying to make him jealous almost.
Well, which is just like for youth players 16 and 17 to lock them in, because you don't want to become that 18-year-old who's not locked in on a youth contract.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like getting signed in baseball when you're 18 as opposed to like 16. Yeah, it's the same type of deal.
He goes out, and this is interesting because he actually says that he never really thought he was going to leave Liverpool. He was just pretty much forcing their hand, being like, you want to sign me to the youth team. Just let's make this happen. I'm going to go. He was like, I'm going to go do a little vacation in Manchester. Like that's literally what he called it. And they ended up signing him, which is pretty. It was pretty standard. Everybody could kind of see it coming.
Yeah, everything's put into place for this to happen. He just needed to kind of force the hand.
November 5th, 1997 at 17. So he signs for Liverpool. And then he actually makes his debut a year later.
Yeah, 98, which is, he's still only 18. I mean, he's not much further past the age of 18, and he makes it onto Liverpool's team.
Plays up against the Blackburn Rovers and ends up playing 13 games that season. They were saying he really wasn't going to be plugged in that season, but Jamie Redknapp, man, I'm messing up on these names, ended up getting injured, so he ended up plugging in for, more games than they thought he was going to play, and he was pretty bad. I'll say that.
Yeah, he really struggled at first.
First 2 seasons, playing in the center for Jamie, and then the second season he comes in and he plays a lot of right wing, and when he's playing in the central midfield, he's playing a lot of defensive central midfield, and he is this is a quote that he said that I thought was very interesting. He said, "In my first couple of seasons, I was out of position and out of my depth."
Yeah, he really wasn't expecting that kind of leap as far as talent is concerned from the things that I had read about him. And also, it needs to be stated, kudos to the coaching staff for not necessarily pressuring him. Like, they could have just as easily cut bait, but they really stuck with him. They kind of understood, like, well, we had to bring him up a little bit too early. But no, kudos to them, honestly.
Well, they knew that he had this talent that shone through, even though he wasn't playing, necessarily great, because the mistakes he was making really were like nerves and inexperience and shit like that.
And he's 18, 19 years old.
Well, that's what they were saying. It was just like, okay, so this is going to not be the way in a year, 2 years. In his second season, he had back problems too. He also got a red card in his Merseyside derby, which is the Everton Liverpool game, and it was a rough first go for him, and he was actually hated in the Liverpool press for a while.
But a lesser man would have crumbled. He did not.
Well, I feel like in this, because at Liverpool it was definitely a high pressure situation, but it was he was kind of ready for it, and then luckily 2000-2001 they ended up winning some cups, which I wonder how it would go if they ended up not having this really successful season, because they end up winning an FA Cup, a League Cup, which is the poor man's double, and then they end up winning the UEFA Cup, which is the way I would equate it would be like the NIT, so it's like the lesser of the your European cups or whatever.
Is it just me, or does the term poor man's double sound like you get to second base, but it's outside the shirt?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The poor man's double.
The poor man's double, outside the shirt, outside of a hoodie with it's too much padding. That's all I'm saying.
Probably a burqa on the outside or something too, extra clothing. But anyway.
So this 2000-2001 team, everybody's looking at Liverpool as like, this team's going to be our team of the future. We've been bad for 20 years. So the thing that was really a bummer that Gerrard said was, it really kind of, after this really successful 2000-2001 season, the team kind of dissolved. So players either had peaked or they ended up getting sold and move on. And we see this with Michael Owen going to Real Madrid, and Robbie Fowler kind of teetering off for his thing, and Carragher not really being the central defensive presence that he was. So like in 2002, they weren't as good.
Yep.
Which he said later on was like, oh, I thought we were going to go on and like win the league. And we went on and were kind of shit.
Yeah, they're pretty mediocre if you ask me from what I read about this season. But following year, 2003, Gerrard, things start looking up for him, I feel like.
Well, this is when he really starts to become more of an offensive threat.
Yeah.
Something he talks about was he wished he was played in a more offensive role throughout his career, because they played him on the right and they played him in more of like defensive roles, but he felt like he should have been that number 10 forever.
Yeah, the position for sure.
2003, they end up winning the League Cup again against Manchester United. He scored a goal in that one, ended up beating them 2-0, which was a pretty huge game in that, because Manchester United was so dominant in this era.
Fergie time, we talked about that for sure.
And then we get into probably his greatest year.
Yep.
Probably not performance-wise individually, but he said, I mean, we'll get into it. In 2004, they get Rafa Benitez, which is, he's said this before, he's probably like one of the colder managers, but tactically he's probably the greatest manager. I'll bring it up later in his own managing kind of thing, and they ended up butting heads when he first came in, and they had a really bad season. So they keep having bad seasons in the league.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that Liverpool fans wanted, was they could see their potential. They had these cup-winning teams, FA Cup, League Cup, a European Cup, but they kept getting like third, fourth, fifth, and people were like, no, we want a League Cup victory. Benitez comes in, and they're like, even worse, if that makes sense.
No,
so like,
it's like you suffer a setback and you're like, what the heck are they doing here right now? Come on.
but they're doing really great in the Champions League.
Yeah, they are.
So
man.
this is when they start going through in the Champions League, and they end up getting through. I want to say this because they, at the end of the group stage, they're playing Olympiacos. Olympiacos is already through number one, and Liverpool's playing for the second spot to get through. And Gerrard has, without a doubt, one of the greatest shots, his probably greatest goal ever. It's like 35 feet out, and it puts them up and puts them essentially through to this Champions League next round, which is, it's such a great goal. Please go check that out.
Yeah, no, it's legit.
Gerrard against Olympiacos. It is absolutely wild.
That was in my YouTube search bar.
Yeah. So they go on to, they take this to the Champions League final.
Yes, they do.
Which the 2005 Champions League final is one of the most epic games you will ever see. It's Liverpool versus AC Milan in Istanbul.
Yep.
We're doing an episode on it, so check that out. What was your take on it? So
as most of you know who've been watching this podcast, I'm not a soccer guy. I just never followed it or, got into it in my younger years. And when I had tried to watch it, the games were kind of relatively boring, like, probably Europeans when they watch baseball. If every soccer game was like this game, holy crap. It was awesome.
Well, this was the thing, was AC Milan was looked at as this dominant team that was going to come in and kick Liverpool's ass. They go up 3-0 in the first half.
In like a flurry, too. It was like very quickly.
And then there was this moment that people said that AC Milan kind of turned it off. And we see, I think it's the 55-minute, Gerrard ends up scoring Liverpool's first goal for it to be 3-1. And you see him like kind of get his team like behind this idea of like, no, we can come back in this game. They end up scoring 2 more goals in the span of like 7 minutes.
Yeah,
so
that was quick too.
It's such a short little span, and then they ended up winning in penalty kicks, which is it's such an insane game. We'll get into it more in depth into the episode. But Liverpool,
they call it the miracle in Istanbul.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they call this game.
Liverpool end up winning their first Champions League victory since '84.
Yep.
And Steven Gerrard's the captain, and he hoists this Champions League victory.
What they've been waiting for, man.
Well, he said it because everybody was like wanting this league victory, and nobody really thought this Champions League victory was really in the cards for them, and they just kept beating teams. They ended up beating Chelsea on the way, they ended up beating Juventus on the way, and to beat AC Milan in this last game, it was like, Gerrard kind of said it was like, we pretty much beat them with our heart. You know? So
Cinderella story is what that is.
Yeah. It was absolutely great. And then directly after this, there's all this talks with him moving on away from Liverpool. And he has a bunch of quotes from this. He said, this is the first time that I ever thought I was going to move away from Liverpool.
Yeah, because the offers were there, man. I mean,
well, like early on when he went and trialed for Manchester United, he was like, I never was going to play for Manchester United. This was like the first time where I thought I might actually go on. And his quote that I actually kind of hate, but he says, well, not this one. This was good. He was like, how am I going to leave after a night like this? He had that quote, which was pretty good. But then he actually said, where did he say it? He said, I'd rather win one League Cup with Liverpool than multiple ones with Chelsea, because Chelsea was the one that was coming in with a huge fucking deal.
And that's your team, right?
And that's my team. And I was like, you son of a bitch. But I completely respect him because he wanted to be a one club man.
Yeah.
And I'll get into it at the end of his career why this is kind of a sad moment right here if you know, but not for him. And now we're going to jump over to a little international.
Yes, let's
So
do that.
it's 2004, 2005. They just win the Champions League Cup, Liverpool, and then they go to the 2004 Euros.
Yep.
And he's pretty good, but he has this complaint, and I'm going to bring it up where it actually helps. It actually helped them in the Champions League final because he was actually man of the match of that game.
Yep.
And the reason why he was man of the match, he was a center offensive midfielder. He was pretty much all over the field, and then late in the game, AC Milan ended up making a tactical change, and he ends up going back and playing right back and making all these defensive stops. So like he's literally playing like the best offensive, the best defensive in the second half. That's what the other thing that people were saying was that is literally a tale of two halves.
Well, when you look at early in his career, they were kind of trying to figure out where to play him.
Well, and that was what he was really complaining about was he had wished that Benitez came early in his career and just stuck him at number 10 because that's the first coach to be like, no. This is your best position, and that's going to benefit us the most. And that's what Benitez knew, though. He was just like, well, I know you're good enough to drop back. I'm going to utilize this one time. And he said it was detrimental to him on the English game, on the international thing, because they had so many central midfielders that were great with Scholes, Lampard, him, Owen Hargreaves, that he ended up playing right midfield and left midfield when that was open. And he said, I really should have been like, no, I'm the central offensive midfielder. It's one of those things where he would have probably would have been Lampard and him, Scholes and him.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been if he had made that stance, it wouldn't have been Lampard and Scholes, if that makes sense. So like he was better at those positions. I feel like each of those players has their own unique qualities. Mm-hmm. Lampard scoring, Scholes passing, but like Gerrard was the overall best midfielder.
Yeah.
Like top to bottom. And that's the thing about this was he felt like he for England, he should have played more central midfielder. They end up losing the. I'm sorry, I said the. Where am I at?
We're in the 2004 Euros.
The 2004 Euros.
And they end up losing to Portugal.
Thank you. I was on a different card there. I got all off on my central midfielder thing. Yeah, they end up losing to Portugal in the quarterfinals, which was a bummer because everyone thought that this was like a good youth team, Rooney and all these players. Yeah. Then on to the 2006 World Cup where they end up losing to Portugal in the quarterfinals again.
Yeah, I think one of them was penalty kicks, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The World Cup. It's brutal, but we'll come back into it when we come back into international again in 2010 where I talk about the really harsh thing is this golden generation that just really did not even...
Yeah, they didn't achieve
scrape the surface.
Shit.
That's what they were saying. They didn't qualify for 2008. And then in 2010, I'll just say it right now, and then we won't get into because it's such a bummer. I was so into this English team in 2010.
Were you really?
I was like, this is their World Cup. We're gonna go in it, and they just looked bad from the get-go, and they end up losing to Italy in penalty kicks. And I mean, there were some bright spots, but not what everybody was thinking. So
they have a recent history of just blowing things away.
Yeah, well, they're just not. They can't put it together on the international scale, even though they have the best league, even though they have all this potential. It was just too many of the same players. That kind of bullshit. You know what I mean?
Oh no, totally. Get back into his Liverpool career.
Yeah, okay. 2005, 2006.
Ooh, this was a good year.
Might have been his best individual year. Again, no league thing. That's the thing that everybody kind of harps back on. But he had 23 goals, 56 appearances, and that's at midfield.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's really good. He was the Players Player of the Year, so even his peers thought he was doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, the PFA Player of the Year, which when you get voted that, it's normally like guys that do just like a little bit extra, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the shit that just doesn't show up on the stat sheet.
They give
every single time.
110%.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Okay.
And they end up winning the FA Cup that year against West Ham. This is something that he has in his repertoire is long range, beautiful goals in finals and leading up to finals. So he has one in this FA Cup final in 2006 where it's a equalizer and they end up going on to win. It is absolutely awesome.
I bet you we would have made that field goal if Marino held the laces in. He was just that special.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. 2007, he ends up finishing 6th in Player of the Year, which there was just so many
Nothing
better.
to sneeze at.
Yeah, it was like Messi, Ronaldo, Drogba. Check out that episode.
Yeah, Drogba, that's a good one too.
There was just better. And then he keeps struggling at this point. There's like points in his career where he's struggling with groin injuries.
He's had like a really bad groin for whatever reason all the time.
I'll tell you what, the ladies don't say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, he had like a bunch of groin surgeries in his youth.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then it's the same injury that keeps nagging him. So he has his surgery again in 08-09.
Hans Mollman with football in the groin.
No, seriously. And it's hard to say exactly what it is, but it's like constant,
Yeah, some people just have nagging injuries like that, like in any sport. It's just like, oh man, he screwed it up again. Like, dang it.
I want to say this, Zinedine Zidane, one of the greatest soccer players, and one of the best coaches, which
one
was
of
kind
the best headbutters to the solar plexus.
There you go. And in this time said that he felt like Gerrard was the best player in the world, not just midfielder. He knew that he wasn't getting the accolades that Messi and Ronaldo were getting, but he felt like as opposed to them, he made everybody around him confident. He was the best defender. He was the best attacker on the field. Like, he was all these things that everyone's like, oh shit, he's going to go to Real Madrid.
Yeah, right.
This was the thing that with this coming out,
But like he was the igniter for the team. Like he did so many little things where like one guy's a star at doing one thing. He just seemed to be everywhere for the whole team.
I'll tell you what is the best, because people use this definition for people or for players, and I feel like it's kind of incorrect. For Steven Gerrard, it's so correct, is that he's a box-to-box player.
Yeah.
Where he just goes the whole time. He's going to come back. He's going to play good defense. He's going to go forward. He's going to play good offense. He has everything. I mean, he's like a five-tool
pretty much, yeah,
fucking baseball player.
Yeah, totally.
09-10 season, Rafa Benitez leaves. This is when the speculation that he was going to go to Real Madrid. Zidane was saying, shit a couple of years earlier, and there was always speculation that he was going to leave Liverpool because they just weren't putting it together for league championships.
No, and the speculation is going to happen if you're not winning the league, but this team was special to him.
Well, Roy Hodgson came in and said that there's no way we're going to sell him, and Gerrard agreed that he wanted to get Liverpool back and like right the ship away from Benitez kind of thing. Like he was kind of ready for that separation. 2010-11, he has more groin injuries.
Yeah,
like it's brutal, man. And then 11-12, he has more groin injuries. And I thought this was interesting because he has good seasons right here. And this was the only other time that he thought about leaving, because Real Madrid actually made the call and he immediately said no. So like this is the way that happens. They make the call to like your agent and they just kind of feel it out before they even like contact the club. And Bayern Munich came in the summer of 2012, and this was the only real one that was like, he was like, it was closer than the at the time people thought.
He's going to Franz Beckenbauer that shit up if he goes there.
Well, he made this, and this was another one where he said, going to Munich, we would have won championships without a doubt, but I really wanted to win that league with Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly.
And, 2012 League Cup winners, first time at Wembley, so they rebuilt the old Wembley Stadium, and first time at Wembley since like the 80s. They end up being in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where his career starts to peter off.
Yeah, it just goes out, man.
2013, they give him a contract extension. He becomes the first Liverpool player to score in 15 consecutive campaigns.
That was cool.
So he pretty much is stamping himself as Mr. Liverpool in this era, because obviously we can go back and and then he becomes the first player to ever captain Liverpool for 10 consecutive seasons. So like shit like that is awesome. And then we just start getting into milestones.
Yeah, milestones. 2013, he had his 100th goal there for him, which is pretty impressive. Thought that was pretty cool. The 15 in a row, though, man, that was holy cow.
Well, it shows to what a consistently great player he was.
Yeah.
And then we get into the 13-14 season, which as a Chelsea fan, this was amazing. As a Liverpool fan, I could only feel bad for him, and especially for Steven Gerrard. So Liverpool's humming through this whole season.
Yeah.
They're really kicking ass, and they're up 2 points on Chelsea with 3 games to play. Steven Gerrard plays a back pass to absolutely nobody. Demba Ba comes up, steals it, goes in and scores, makes it 1-0. Chelsea go on to win 2-0.
Yep.
And Chelsea goes on to win the league.
That's
so
amazing,
they take the 1-point victory from them, and then they don't essentially lose it. And Steven Gerrard said, "This is
devastated."
He was so. This was the quote that he said. He said, "It was the worst 3 months of my life."
Oh God. Well, at least he didn't assume the name of a missing hiker and join the police force to get back at Liverpool for the entire thing.
It was because he felt like he was blaming himself for this. He felt like even though there was all this other shit and he played unbelievable, they get second again. I think in his Liverpool career, I think they got second 3 times.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
This is what I'm saying. 2014-15, he said he didn't want to retire, even though he was told that he was going to get less playing time and a smaller contract if he wanted to come back.
Yeah.
He ends up finishing out his career in LA Galaxy.
Yeah, he played in the MLS.
I found this one to be interesting. Actually, before we do that, he did get his 500th cap with the team. He was one of 3 players to get his 500th cap with the only one team, the other 2 being Ryan Giggs.
Awesome episode.
And Carragher, which was literally his center back almost his whole time at Liverpool, which I felt like that was awesome that they both kind of shared that accomplishment together.
Very rare you see 2 guys play that long for one team on the same team.
Exactly.
You know? But finishes out with the LA Galaxy. Got $9 million to play for him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I hate to say this. He said this later in his career. He was like, football-wise, I should have stayed at Liverpool. They were rebuilding something, and I could have been for like 2 or 3 years. I could have been like a guy that played 25 games in like a way smaller role. Money-wise, going to the Galaxy, that's what he said. It was just a money grab. Like, literally, he went and played 1 season. I think he played like 15 games.
Yeah, he barely played it all.
And that's what they said. He was just like, it was so much money at the end of my career for 1 season.
You try and turn down $9 million.
Exactly.
Everybody who's angry.
He was just like, I couldn't deny that. And at this point, I want to because we got to go back to 2008.
Yes, we do.
And we got to go all the way back to one of the funniest moments of his whole life.
Funniest and sad at the same time.
2008, I believe they're celebrating an FA Cup win.
Yep.
Let me look and see exactly.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yes. They're celebrating something. So he's out with his buddies in like a nightclub in like one of those European towns. I forget exactly where it was. It might even have been like an English, but it was like a resort kind of town.
The Lounge Inn.
The Lounge Inn.
December 29th, 2008.
And they're just jamming out.
Oh, yeah.
And they're jamming out to who?
They're jamming out to a band. One of the greatest bands. One who's a favorite of stockbroker Patrick Bateman.
Ooh, I like that.
Phil Collins and Genesis, everybody.
Well, there's like a DJ that's playing, music.
It's kind of everything.
Yeah, and they keep requesting. They're like, please just play more Phil Collins. And the guy's just like, nah, I don't want to play Phil Collins anymore. And like it starts to get like heated. They're just like, look, if the next song isn't Genesis, your ass is grass, and like shit like that. Where it was just like, is this a joke?
Look, as a fan of Phil Collins and Genesis, there is never too much that can ever be played in any instance. Okay.
And he said he wasn't going to play Phil Collins anymore. And then I guess the heated words were exchanged, and Gerrard and his two buddies beat the shit out of this DJ.
Oh, he's going to get studioed. Yes!
Studioed. Gerrard is. I'll tell you what's crazy about this, and we brought this up pre-podcast, was his two friends were actually charged, and he wasn't, which made me think his two friends kind of like attacked this guy, and then the guy kind of maybe like threw shit or so. Like, who the fuck knows what happened, because there was no video of it. But the one thing was for sure was that one group of guys beat the shit out of another guy because he turned off Genesis, and that is one of the greatest moments of anybody's life.
To quote them, that's all. Anyway,
it was, and Gerrard got off, so it was kind of like whatever. But it was so fucking funny when I heard this happen. When it happened, I was just like, "Wait, is that a joke?"
Right? I mean, but to think about it, for him, it had to be embarrassing having to go through the legal process because you didn't hear Genesis enough times in a row.
I can only imagine the amount of times like asshole friends would bring that up.
Oh,
especially when Phil Collins would come on the radio, just be like, "I'm gonna turn this off. Is that okay?"
Can you feel it, Steven? It's in the air tonight.
It's in the air tonight. I do want to finish on his managerial career.
Yeah, because he's coaching, Mm-hmm.
He ended up managing Liverpool's youth team.
2017.
And then he ended up taking over the Scottish team Rangers in 2021. They ended up winning the Scottish title.
They did awesome.
Without losing a single game. First time in a decade.
Exactly.
Which is pretty amazing, beating, Celtic and that huge rivalry down there. And right now he's currently coaching Aston Villa, and people are saying in the next 4 or 5 years, 2-3 years, any one of those numbers, he's going to take over Liverpool. So it's an interesting path that Steven Gerrard has. He's never had any other legal trouble. I just want to say this.
The story's too funny not to say.
I was just going to say it's so cheeky, it's so silly, and that's why, because if you look at his other stuff, he's like, oh, he's literally never done anything wrong other than just be like, hold on. Phil Collins. And that's what makes it so funny. For me, I'm a Chelsea fan through and through. I do think that Steven Gerrard was the best midfielder in this era, which is really saying something.
And many of his peers feel the same way, who he played against and alongside. So, I mean, just a fantastic soccer player and fellow Genesis lover.